Welcome to another story made by Oracle One. In the small town of Ravensbridge, nestled between dense forests and rolling hills, the legend of the Tooth Fairy was more than a bedtime tale whispered in hushed tones. For generations, parents cautioned their children to guard their teeth fiercely, especially the ones wiggling loose. Night after night, children lost teeth, yes, but quietly and without fear. It was expected, even celebrated, with coins left under pillows as tokens of bravery. Yet, lately, something darker had crept into the shadows that loomed over these quaint traditions. It began with the rumors. At first, just a few parents noticed something strange. Their children woke up confused, their tiny fingers feeling sore and strange, but no visible wounds. At first, doctors shrugged it off as strange growing pains or minor injuries. But then, more children began to lose more than just teeth. It started with fingernails. Children awoke to find their nails missing, smooth, pink nail beds exposed where their nails once were. Panic grew when fingertips began to shrink inexplicably. Parents would find their child's fingertips shorter by the morning, the skin smooth and unmarred but unmistakably diminished. Some children's fingers disappeared altogether, as if an invisible force was selecting the youngest, most innocent bodies and taking bits at a time. No one knew why. Emily Larson, an investigative journalist known for debunking myths, arrived in Ravensbridge after hearing disturbing whispers from the townsfolk. The mayor had refused to allow any external medical team in, fearing mass hysteria. But Emily's skepticism drove her deeper. She wasn't convinced by the town's quiet desperation or the local talismans hanging from windows shaped like tiny teeth crafted from carved bones. For context, the tradition again. Children would lose teeth, place them under their pillows, and the tooth fairy would visit in the night, leaving small rewards behind. However, this was no longer the gentle sprite of old. Something had perverted the myth, twisting it into a predatory curse. Emily documented first-hand accounts. Mia Hendricks, a 7-year-old whose baby tooth had just fallen, was among the first victims. The night after Mia lost her tooth, her mother found her small hands trembling, fingertips curling unnaturally. When morning came, Mia screamed in agony. Her fingernails were gone, and the tips of 3 fingers were visibly shorter, as if bitten cleanly by some unseen jaws. The same had happened to other children. Doctors could find no cause. The nails simply vanished. Fingers shrank or disappeared entirely. Her bones felt brittle, as if something inside her was slowly dissolving. "I dreamt of a woman," Mia said shakily, barely able to speak through tears. She had hollow eyes and long, sharp teeth like knives. She said she wanted more than teeth, she wanted everything, wanted parts of me. I told her I didn't want to give her my fingers, but she said if I didn't, she would take something else. Something worse. Emily knew this wasn't a mental conjuring or a fever dream. There was something malevolent at work. The children's bodies bore no cuts or scrapes, only missing flesh and bone where none should be missing. Nights were filled with terrified children waking to icy fingers and silent, bone-chilling whispers that seeped through closed windows. Following the trail, Emily learned the dark truth behind the tooth fairy myth in Ravensbridge. Long ago, the town's founders had called upon a spirit to watch over their children, ensuring safe passage into adulthood. But the bargain was twisted. The fairy was no benevolent guardian. She was a collector, a vampiric entity who fed not just on teeth but any part of flesh she desired. Her hunger grew over centuries, fed by secret rituals and sacrifices disguised as innocence. And now, the price was not just teeth but fingers, nails, and bones. The local church's records told of centuries-old cases where children vanished, only to return changed, hollow, incomplete, their youth stolen piece by piece. Emily suspected that the entity could be stopped if the townsfolk confronted their age-old curse. But they were too afraid, too complicit in silence to even admit the truth to outsiders. Fear strangled the voices that should have been raised in opposition. In the dead of night, Emily decided to witness the entity herself. She waited in the creaking attic of the old Grayson house, rumored to be the epicenter of the curse. Her lantern flickered against walls festooned with strange marks, runes and old symbols carved into wood, some freshly scrawled in a dark, sticky substance that looked ominously like dried blood. Midnight struck. A chill swept through the room, and the temperature plummeted. A whisper echoed, soft as silk, sharp as a blade. The Tooth Fairy emerged from the darkness, not the sweet sprite of children's tales, but a towering figure, draped in tattered lace that fluttered like dead wings. Her eyes were hollow pits of darkness, and her mouth stretched impossibly wide, revealing rows of jagged, needle-sharp teeth dripping with black saliva. She reached towards Emily with hands that seemed to blur and flicker, fingers long and slender, ending in clawed nails the shade of rotten bone. The air was thick with the scent of decay and sugar. "You have come for answers." The fairy's voice was a seductive hiss, echoing with 1,000 lost screams. "But answers come at a price." She beckoned Emily closer, her shadow stretching long like a looming nightmare. "I want to know why you take more than teeth. What do you want from the children?" Emily demanded, trying to steady her racing heartbeat. The creature smiled wider, almost in satisfaction. "Teeth are but the surface. Flesh. Nails. Bones, they hold memories, strength, life itself. The children's essence feeds me, shapes me. Without it, I fade, and so does the power that binds me to this realm." Emily suddenly understood. The Tooth Fairy's hunger was also a curse upon the town, a cycle sustained by the life force of the children. She realized that stopping the fairy might mean breaking the curse, and possibly sacrificing herself or others to sever the binding. "What happens if you take too much?" she asked, voice barely a whisper. The fairy's grin twisted into something horrid. "Then there is nothing left to take but the soul." Terrified, Emily backed away, the lantern's light flickering and nearly going out as the fairy lunged forward, her form dissolving like mist only to reappear again behind Emily's shoulder. Blood cold in her veins, Emily fled through the empty dark streets, the fairy's chilling laughter chasing her like a storm. Desperate, Emily sought out the oldest living resident of Ravensbridge, Agnes Marlowe. Agnes was a frail woman haunted by decades of sorrow, her eyes clouds of pain. She revealed to Emily the ritual to push the fairy back to her shadow realm, but warned it was dangerous. The ritual required the town to face the truth and renounce the old pact, and the sacrifice of a willing soul to bind the entity once more. The townspeople had stopped believing in the fairy, but the curse fed on belief and fear alike. Without confronting it, the children would continue to disappear, losing fingers, nails, bones, until nothing was left. Emily gathered the town's scared and broken parents for a confrontation at the old town square, where the pact was first sealed. She told them the truth, of the fairy's hunger and the price of silence. Some refused to believe, but as another child vanished during the gathering, the dread became real. Together, with candles flickering in cold hands, the townspeople recited the ancient words Agnes provided, voices trembling but growing stronger. The fairy appeared, furious and desperate, attacking with shadows and screams. Fingers were lost in the chaos, nails cracked, bones cracked as parents shielded their children from the nightmare manifesting before them. Emily stood at the heart of the ritual, reciting the binding verses, willing herself to be the sacrifice the fairy demanded. Her flesh shivered, nails darkened, and bones felt brittle as if the fairy was already taking her. But with a final shout, the fairy screamed, clawing at the invisible chains that wrapped her like serpents, before dissolving into a flurry of broken teeth and dust, scattered to the winds. The silent night that followed was heavy with relief and grief. Children's missing fingers began to regrow, their nails returned like fresh blooms, and X-rays revealed bones knitting themselves back, stronger than before. But Emily felt a lasting hollow in her own hands, slight, almost unnoticeable, reminders that no bargain with such darkness was without cost. Ravensbridge slowly healed, its children safe once again to lose teeth with innocent smiles. Yet, the tale of the tooth fairy who took too much remained. A whispered warning. Some of the oldest parents told their children that when a tooth wiggled loose, they should guard it. Not because the fairy might leave a coin, but because she might return, hungry once more. The woods that bordered Ravensbridge remained silent and ominous, and sometimes, on cold, still nights, faint whispers drifted on the wind. Whispers of a hunger that can never be fully sated. For more stories, like and subscribe.